taking control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching have taken over. We the people, our little brother, standing by to dethrone each other, watching you and watching me. Paranoid, the lens is our weapon, desensitized in our lust for attention, democratized by our voyeur obsessions, watching you and watching me. Slaves to perfection, don't let them project you as you are. Reveal your every flaw. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye, we're the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Stay in line, don't make a mistake. We're watching. We watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
let your experience begin right now. From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio. You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter, @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride as we are live on Spaced Out Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The deeper I go, the deeper I fall. Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott, and thank you so much for listening in at spacedoutradio.com and on Spreaker. As once again we come in from the frozen Canadian tundra, battle our way past the wild animals, sidestep Bigfoot, and enter Uncle Jimbo's cabin, stoke the fire, heat this place up, and broadcast you live on this Wednesday night, early Thursday morning if you're on the East Coast. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we are broadcasting 3 hours a night, 7 days a week. We want to be your official one-stop shop when it comes to the cryptozoological, supernatural, paranormal, conspiratorial, and so much more. Spaced Out Radio's theme music is provided by the guitar god himself, Ron Bumblefoot Thal. You can find Bumblefoot's album, Little Brother is Watching, by going to our website, clicking on the Bumblefoot banner at spacedoutradio.com. Hey, if you're a social media junkie like I am, follow me on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. At this time, we welcome in our fans listening in on the SHR Media Network over in Paranormal Forum online, in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, along with on Facebook at Euphoria Chronicles, Forest Moon Paranormal, and the SOR Space Travelers. We also welcome in everyone listening in on the Wolf Spirit Radio Network. If you're a fan, it's Spaced Out Radio. Coming soon to our website is the Space Travelers membership, where for only $5 a month you can win prizes, take part in private group interviews. We're going to create a special section on our website for you, and so much more. Hey, we're going to give you a hell of a lot more than just access to our archives. Tonight's show is brought to you by Rivulet Reiki and Readings, providing healings in person or at a distance. PurplePlates.com, helping heal your body, mind, and soul. 80,000 people a month read the new Agora newspaper. And the iTunes app Spirit Storybox. It's the official ghost hunting app of Spaced Out Radio. It's the second Wednesday of the month, which means it's time for the Crypto Guru to join us once again on Spaced Out Radio. Author Ronald Murphy, who is a bestseller on Amazon, is back with us tonight, and it's always good and a good time when Ron joins us. We've talked to him about many different topics, from fairies to dogman, mermaids to Sasquatch. But tonight, we're stepping out of our comfort zone. We're heading into a realm that we've never gone with the Crypto Guru. We're stepping into the paranormal. From ghosts to spirits, Ron is getting into what happens after we die. Are ghosts real? Tonight, Ron is bringing in his friend and co-worker, Leah Dawn Madden. She comes and works with Ron on numerous occasions when it comes down to the occult, paranormal, spiritual. Leah is someone who Ron goes to when he needs some advice when helping to write his many books. So, we're going to get into it. How do these hauntings happen? What is keeping spirits here?
Does it tie into the field of cryptozoology? That's one part I'm not too sure of, but I'm sure the crypto guru himself will know. We got Ron, we got Leah. Thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Again, Ron, Leah, for you, the first time ever doing a radio interview, will be very kind and gentle, so enjoy yourself.
Thank you. Yes, Dave, I told her how great your show is, but what makes your show so great is your wonderful audience who I tell you this every time I come on, the best in the business, so I'm looking forward to their questions and to your questions, and I love everything that there is to know about ghosts. I love to explore that whole world, but I thought, this is really not my level of expertise, so I might as well bring on my good friend Leah, who is a spiritualist, a medium, and a great ghost hunter. So I thought, this will be a great new perspective, and I'm glad that she was able to come on, and I am very flattered that you have her on with me, and I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion.
And me too. And Leah, thank you so much for taking the time to join Ron and I tonight. Usually it's just Ron and myself, and we just yammer away on whatever the topic is, and I just kind of sit here and listen to the author himself paint a picture of a bunch of great words, and I just like, yeah, this is why he's such a talented writer. But Leah, we know a little bit about Ron, and we'll get into Ron in a minute, but let's learn about you, Leah. You have an intuitive ability. You are someone who is very, very helpful when it comes to helping people like Ron put 2 and 2 together to make 4. How old were you when you discovered your abilities?
I was 2 years old.
2 years old. How did you learn it at 2?
My mother said that I woke up from a nap. I was crying and screaming that the nurses were hurting the burns on the side of my body. Took her forever to calm me down. The next day, my 1-year-old cousin accidentally overturned a pot of hot coffee over top of him, and it was on the side that I said that the nurses were hurting my burns. He ended up with 3rd and 2nd degree burns.
Wow.
And from there, my mother encouraged it. She was a very open-minded individual. She was very well read. I read anything she could on the paranormal, on spirits, on ghosts, on UFOs, on cryptids. So she truly did encourage. She always kept that door open for me.
So you grew up with it, and you were very much in tune with what is happening around you and your environment because it was accepting to you at an early age. Was that tough growing up, Leah?
It was. It really was. There's a reason why I sleep with a nightlight on in my room. Let's just put it that way. Because I want to know who's in my room when I wake up, because it's on 24/7. It doesn't shut off. So I was very lucky to have the parents, even my father. Not that he wasn't a believer, but he was very open-minded too, and they both encouraged, and they both accepted me for who I was and who I am.
And that's important. And you know what? My daughter is very gifted. Even though she's going through the teenage years at 17 years old where she's very confused and, teenage drama steps into play and she's kind of turned off her abilities. My other daughter, who is 13 years old, and Ron can attest to this, I've sent him a video, she actually, since we moved to our new house, is in touch with the fairy realm. And she actually filmed a fairy in her room. And Ron, you might want to comment on that video because I sent that to you.
I did see it, and it was one of those things that really strike you whenever you first watch it. It's a girl in a room doing regular teenage girl things, and behind her is something that looks very much like what people would consider to be a fairy. It was unbelievable. It was striking. There was no question about it. It wasn't one of those things where it was like a blob squatch. There was ambiguity to it. This was, in great lighting conditions, and there's no other way that you could describe it but as a fairy type creature. And from what I've gathered, she has also seen these things without a camera being on, and we were just lucky at that particular time that she was able to document it with a camera.
I would make the video public, but I am not a real editor of things. And Leah, one of the things that I am very protective of is my privacy, especially when you're discussing things in a field like we do on a nightly basis. And, people are so critical with any type of video footage. I really don't need the public going out there and absolutely carving my daughter a new one, because let's face it, people are so tough and animated on the internet that they'll say things that they would never say to a person's face. So in order to protect it, I've never released the video of it, but it is kind of cool. Now, if you look at it, I will say this, to the skeptic, they'll say, well, that looks like a fly, or it looks like maybe a mosquito or something along those lines. But where I live, in the dead of winter, when it was probably in the negative 20s, and that's in Celsius, minus 20 in Celsius, there are no bugs. They go underground because that's the way they're going to survive. We don't have bugs in the winter here. So to watch this come from the window and start moving, it sure didn't look like a bug, did it, Ron?
It did not. And the thing is, though, there is precedent to this video as well, because your daughter, if I'm not mistaken, had talked about seeing things right outside her window. Is that correct?
Actually, even in her bedroom at night.
In her bedroom, that's right.
When she is actually going to bed at night, she'll have her light off, and she will see the sparkly colors literally within inches of her face. Mostly it's above her ceiling, and it will actually come on down. And she says she just sits there and watches them, and it's like these little fairies are just absolutely adoring her. And if you knew her personality, you would see why.
And there is an attraction there to certain people, without a doubt. I was fortunate several years ago. I guess it's been about 2 years ago. Seems like a lifetime ago, but about 2 years ago, Leah and I and a group that we work with, the Center for Cryptozoological Studies, we actually did an investigation that involved exploring into the fairy realm. On midsummer, we went down to a place that had a lot of cryptid activity and a lot of strange activity, and we went down there on June 21st, and it was a beautiful, beautiful night, and we encountered light anomalies, and we could only... the only thing that we could, the way to describe this, it was something supernatural going on. It was definitely not natural, and it was just a very, very stunning time that we had in this investigation. I was lucky that Lee was there, but I feel that we had actually made a connection to the fairy realm, or probably more accurately, the fairy world had made connection with us.
And with her being, you said she's 13, that's a key turning point, because you're going from a child into young adulthood, and you'll find a lot of phenomenon surround children between the ages of 12 and 15, especially 13. It's a very key number for phenomenon to start happening, where they're able to see more, they're able to experience more.
Lee, I want to focus on you for a minute here, because everybody around these parts knows who the Crypto Guru is, and we absolutely love that nickname for Ron. I don't know if you'd ever heard that outside of tonight, but it was a nickname we gave him about a year ago on this show, and it's just kind of stuck with him. When you talk about your own personal intuitiveness, and you've had it since literally a toddler, are you full-on psychic medium? Are you someone who branches out into specific areas and that's where you stay? Or do you have the whole gamut of talent when it comes to having supernatural abilities?
Well, I'm definitely an intuitive person. I'm very sensitive spiritualist. I'm a psychic medium. When I do readings, I do readings. I do tarot. I do angel cards, what have you. But I also do past life. I do psychometry readings. I am basically wide range. I do a lot of things.
Okay, I am going to get you, Leah, if you don't mind, to try and speak up just a tad more, if you don't mind. Because in my headphones, you're sounding kind of quiet and gentle, and I don't want you to sound... Okay. I want you to belt it out like you're Whitney Houston singing the United States national anthem at the Super Bowl. Get your best Whitney going. Anyways.
All right.
Perfect. But when it comes to your abilities with the spirit side, because that's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about the paranormal. Have you always seen ghosts?
Yes. Yes.
And
ghosts, yes.
And when you see these, are you seeing the full-on apparition, or are you just feeling the energy? What are you exactly going through when this happens?
I get a wide range of things. Sometimes I see a full apparition. Sometimes I see a smoky outline. Sometimes I see a partial, like it's like filmy or foggy. And sometimes I'll feel it. I'll just instantly know that there's somebody there, or I get a sense of I smell, audio. It just depends on how the spirit comes through and how it wants to show itself.
I know, as someone who has seen a handful of spirits myself, it can be quite intimidating. Are you past the intimidating factor of seeing spirits and ghosts, or is it something that has just become so natural that it's like, oh, there's another one, I'll just ignore it and hopefully it'll ignore me?
I've gotten used to it to the point that, it takes an awful lot to get me startled or get me on edge. I've learned to just go with the flow, and sometimes it's better if, like, I'll pretend I don't see you, hoping that they don't see me, because they want your attention usually when they see you, that they know that you see them. But I can go drive down the highway and I can see spirits. I can drive through town and I can see spirits. It's just how it's always been for me.
And Ron, how about you? As we have never really talked about the paranormal with you, Mr. Crypto Guru, what brings you to the field? What interests you about ghosts and spirits?
I think ghosts are the means, the conduit to answer the question, what lays beyond this life. That is the ultimate goal. I think that we as human beings strive to uncover during our lifetime, because we want to believe that there's something else out there beyond just this mortal coil. Now, I do not have a gift in regard to seeing spirits. I think that everybody probably is born with that gift, but we are educated out of it. We're told not to bear witness to it. I've seen it in my children. I've seen it in my children a couple of times. My daughter Willow, I believe, is very, very sensitive. Now, I think that Leah could probably elaborate a little bit more on that. Do you feel that whenever people are born, you are born with an innate sense of seeing the spirit world, and that is something that gradually is you actually wean yourself off of it?
Yes. I have found that children at a very young age, babies in particular, you see them and they're looking around and they're laughing. They're actually seeing deceased loved ones on the other side, or angels. Children are more apt to see spirits than adults, because as adults, you're told, oh, that doesn't exist, or you can't see that, or you shouldn't be seeing that, or you're crazy if you think you're seeing that. So children usually get desensitized. Well, they're told by usually about age 7. You can't see that. That's an imaginary. That's all in your head. And usually from there, gradually they just let it go, if they do have a gift. Now, some children do progress, through their years, and there's key points. Age 7 is one, age 13 is another, and then when you hit your early 20s is another point.
See, I think that is a good point, because, there's an old Irish proverb that states that whenever you see a baby smiling, that is an angel whispering in its ear. I think that's a very, very beautiful way of looking at, the other side, if you will. But whenever Leah states that, these pivotal ages like 7 years old and 13 years old, if children are talking about seeing things that are not supposed to be there, those ages are whenever the schools will step in and you'll get sent to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Yeah. And, of course, medication is going to be administered, and thoughts of autism and schizophrenia and diagnosis and things of that are made. And that is the way of the world, that we do not address these kind of children that are able to sense the other side. We simply medicate it out of them because we are uncomfortable with it as adults.
Absolutely. Being in the school system that I've had several years, I've got experiences in the school system, and you're absolutely right. That's what they do. They medicate them.
You know what? I got to tell you a story, because right before you said, that young babies and toddlers see spirits. When my son was about 5-6 months old, we actually heard, he was sleeping in our bed. We hadn't moved him over to his crib yet. And through the monitor, we heard a woman's voice. And it's only my wife and I at home. So I go into the bedroom, and immediately I walk into our bedroom, and it is filled with love. And in my mind, I am picturing this lady sitting on the edge of the bed, and she started communicating with me. And she actually started saying, you know what? My job is to look after babies. And she goes, I love my job. And that's what she told me. And the whole time she had her eyes on my son. And this is the vision that she was giving me. It was one of the strangest things I have experienced with one of my own family members. And it just gave me such a sense of peace that I said, I can't walk back into the living room where my wife was, and I just said, we don't need to worry. He's taken care of. That's right.
That's awesome.
Yep. And of course, I'm Roman Catholic, so we have a great tradition of, these saints that whose attributes and whose patronage is to take care of children. Saint Matilda is one of them. Saint Joseph, is prayed to ask for intercession concerning families. So it is part of the Judeo-Christian belief that there are spirits, there are angels, there are people that have passed on to the other side who are there to help out those still back on this earth. And I think that children with their innocence and they have just arrived from the other side, they're new here to this world. So why wouldn't they bring a little bit of that side with them?
Well, I think that's for Leah to tell us. Do children come in with spirit guides that are here on a daily basis to help handle them?
Absolutely. You always have spirit guides. You can have up to 2 to 3, sometimes 4, depending. Same with guardian angels. Spirit guides will come and go as you need them. One might come forward and help you with a certain part of your life. They'll step back for a while, and another one will come in. They take turns, basically. So you do have spirit guides and assigned spirit guides and guardian angels that come with you. And they will follow you through lifetimes.
Now, this lady who I picked up energy-wise in the bedroom where my son was sleeping, are there certain guides who only stick around for certain times in in your life? So, for instance, the guides I had as a baby, or you had as a baby, or my son had as a baby, will they be with him 20 years from now, or do they interchange as the child goes through different stages?
It depends on what kind of decision was made on the other side before they were born. They may follow him through certain stages of his life, or they may say, okay, I'm handing the baton over to you, so-and-so, now it's your turn to take over and be his spirit guide. So it just depends.
Very interesting indeed. We have about 1 minute before we go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Ron, I want to bring you in here momentarily. What gets you going about the paranormal, Ron?
It's the questions. I think that life is very boring if you go about going to work and paying bills. There's more to it than that. There's these deep questions that yearn to be answered. There's a gravity to the other side that draws us all in. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there that don't want to admit it. They think that they're impervious to the other side. But no, I think everybody is born with this keen knowledge that something exists out there beyond themselves. And I think it's a shame that people simply close their eyes to it. But for me, the paranormal is all of life's mysteries, and I want to solve at least a couple of those.
All right, Ron Murphy, the crypto guru, along with Leah Dawn Madden tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We are talking paranormal as we are going to figure out spirits. Is there a tie to the crypto world, the fairyland? We'll find out more as we got 2.5 hours to go with the crypto guru himself, Ronald Murphy, making his monthly appearance. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this break.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Hi there. This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm here to bring you the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night, live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for aliens and extraterrestrials, well, we've got them. Big and tall, short and small, you're bound to find what you're looking for. So join me on the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Have you ever wondered about those weird and strange creatures people have reported throughout history? Do you wonder if those stories are real? Me too, and that's why I started Cryptopia.us. Hey, this is Rob Morphy, crypto historian. Join me once a month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will get into the odd and bizarre reports, from the Dover demon to hairy hominids and everything in between. I will break down what people like you and me are seeing at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost?
Look no further than Spaced Out Radio.
SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click on to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on radio
or our website, including social media.
From commercial spots to banners, we have it all.
Check out our competitive pricing today.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Want to connect with us online? Find us on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR, on YouTube, Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. All right, space travelers, here comes the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. I do want to remind you I will not have a show on Friday night. I will be out of town attending a funeral for one of my best friends' mother's passed away just a couple of days ago, so I will be not on the air, so we're actually going to take an extremely rare night off on Spaced Out Radio. Uncle Jimbo James Tyson will be back for Saturday and Sunday, so that way Spaced Out Weekend will fire things up to clear out the week. Tomorrow night on the show, we're going to finish off our week with Susan Collins. We are going to talk dowsing and how dowsing can connect you to the extraterrestrial realm. Going to be very interesting tomorrow night. A reminder, you can follow us on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. And our website, which will have a new look very, very soon, is spacedoutradio.com. If you have a guest in mind that we have never had on the air, you can email bookings@spacedoutradio.com, and we will try and get that person on the air for you. We bring in Ronald Murphy, the crypto guru, along with a good friend and co-worker of his, Leah Dawn Madden, as we talk paranormal with the crypto guru tonight. Ron, Leah, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thank you.
Ron, I want to start off with a question for you. Do you believe there is a tie-in between the crypto world and the paranormal?
I think that there could be a possible connection there, yes. People have said that such sightings of huge lake monsters may not be actual sightings of a biological cryptid, but it could be ghosts of other types of creatures, such as dinosaurs. Now, I'm not sure if I actually, espouse that type of belief, but that is one theory that's out there. And there are multiple theories with ghosts and their connection with the alien world. One of the folks that we work with, Mr. Fred Saluga, he has stated that there is a possibility that people that are looking for ghosts might actually be looking into the world of extraterrestrial entities that are simply moving about around in houses and doing research and things of that nature in the form that we consider spirits. That's a very, very interesting and kind of unnerving conjecture, but there is a great tie-in with the things that I'm interested in and the world of the paranormal. Even things like faeries, which I absolutely adore that field of work. But a lot of people, in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance said that they were abducted by fairies, and in this fairy realm, there were they could identify some people that had passed on to the other side. So we have this connection with the fairies and the realm of the dead. J.R.R. Tolkien in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, he also has this comparison with the dead and the goblin universe as well. So this is a very age-old legends associated with the fairies and the realm of the dead. So these are all very interesting things, and if somebody's going to do their research properly, you're going to have to take in all different accounts and speculations and study it all, and that's basically what I'm doing, my friend.
Leah, I'll ask you the same question from an intuitive standpoint. Do you believe there is a tie-in between the crypto world of fairies, Bigfoot, sea monsters, and ghosts and spirits?
Absolutely. I feel that having the gifts that I have actually been able to, I want to say time trip. I've been able to see dimensional aspects. So everything is in layers, so that if you peel back the layers, you can actually see that, yes, they are tied in. I do believe that the fairy realm and the spirit realm, as well as the crypto and the UFO realm, they're all linked together in some cohesive fashion.
There has been a lot of talk as the ufology field moves forward that there is an extreme tie to the paranormal that no one has been able to put their fingers on yet. When you say that you believe they are tied in, Leah, do you think it is on a spiritual level or on some sort of God plane that this is happening?
I would have to say it's on a different plane of existence as well as a spiritual form. I would have to say it's probably both. Because if you look at the spiritual realm, especially like, say, the fairy realm, if you look at the banshee, okay, or the old hag that was by the water that would wash out the bloody rags of the dead to come, now that's considered a fairy, but it's also the realm of the dead. So I would have to say that it's both on a spiritual and also on a physical different plane of realm.
And that makes sense. That makes sense. I do have a question for you, Leah, from Vicky in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. She is asking, Leah, do you do something to protect yourself from bad energies or spirits?
Yes, I do. For one thing, I make sure that my house is protected. I always have wind chimes up in the front. There's salt. I keep sea salt with me at all times, rosemary. When I go into an investigation, I always make sure that I have a penny in my shoe because copper is a conduit and it will protect you. Archangel Michael is a constant with me. Whenever I find myself in trouble or I need help or extra protection, I'm always calling on him, and he has never, ever failed me. I also have other spirits. I have my own spirit guides and other family members on the other side that are always there for me, too. I've always made sure. I make sure that I have the salt. I make sure I have the sage. If I need to, I burn certain candles, black to get rid of negativity, white to bring in positive energy, yellow for balance. I will, at times, to cleanse myself from negative energies, or if I find myself that I've, got attachment or what have you, or I just feel blah after an investigation, I will take a sea salt bath, an apple cider vinegar bath, and then shower off afterwards. And that usually helps cleanse both my body and my etheric, my aura field. So I feel a lot better after doing that.
I have another question for you, Leah. Ron, you're passé now, apparently.
I guess so.
Another question for you, Leah. This is coming from Galen in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. She is asking or commenting, she sees and feels ghosts and was watched as a child and watched how ghosts of people and animals laid on children. The ghosts got stronger and the children got weaker and scared. What makes you so sure that all ghosts are angels?
Ghosts aren't angels. Angels are angels. Ghosts are a totally different type of being. Ghosts are those that are the deceased that haven't moved on. Spirits are the deceased that have moved on. So that kind of attachment where you have a being laying on top of a child and the child is getting weaker, that is a negative realm. That is a negative being. That could be a succubi and incubi. Normally a succubi is what is a negative entity that usually will take the life force off of a child. So that's definitely something that's negative.
Yeah, we want to keep the negativity away, especially from children. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Our children.
When you have that,
go ahead.
When you have that kind of negativity, the way you can protect your child is to put certain things in the room. You can put amethyst and tiger's eye under the bed or under the pillow. You can put sea salt and rosemary in the corners of the room, in the closet, and on the threshold. You can put pennies on the windowsills. You can sage and make sure that there's certain crystals and rose quartz in the room as well to help protect the child.
Well, let's get into the ghost topic here, because in the end, you live in an area in Pennsylvania which is extremely haunted.
Extremely.
I have been to Beaver County, Pennsylvania a number of times. I have very good friends there, almost like family. And I cannot believe the large amount of cemeteries in that area, because it seems like every street you go on, there's a cemetery at a corner. Ron, tell us about the area and what makes the western part of Pennsylvania so haunted.
That's great. A great question, and I will discuss that at some length if I could. What had happened in western Pennsylvania is unique whenever you're looking at the rest of the country. You've had colonists that come here from a very early time period trying to settle the land. But unlike the areas along the coast, like Jamestown and like Plymouth Colony, we were actually west of the Alleghenies. So right after right before the Revolutionary War, the land was ceded back to the Native Americans as a peace agreement after the French and Indian War. So the area that I live in and the area that Leah lives in was a no man's land. There was no protection here for any of the white settlers. So they were at the mercy of the Native Americans, and there was great hostility. They were in a land that was wanting to be reclaimed by the natives, and there was a lot of bloodshed. Actually, within sight of my very house, there is a field called Scalp Hill, and shortly after the French and Indian War, so we're looking right around 1765 or so, 1770, there was a young woman that was fleeing a band of marauding Native Americans, and they overtook her, and they actually killed her, and this was in sight of my very house. There was a lot of forts in this area that were under constant Indian attack. And this was just the way of the world in western Pennsylvania at this time period. Now, what really kind of provoked the whole idea of having a revolution from our standpoint, and the flag that first flew that stated "Don't tread upon me" was actually flown at a fort called Fort Hannistown, which is only about 12 miles away from where I live, and that is because the British government was not protecting their citizens in this no man's land. So that is what provoked the revolution in my neck of the woods. We were not concerned about stamp acts, and we were not concerned about taxation without representation. We were concerned that we were being taxed, and there was absolutely no help from the British Crown. So there was a tremendous amount of deaths during the French and Indian War, shortly after the French and Indian War, and as well as the Revolutionary War right in my neighborhood. Now, we were able to escape the horrors of the Civil War. At Gettysburg, which is about 3 hours distance from me, there was no Civil War skirmishes in my area. But whenever we see that industrialization started settling in after the Civil War, we have a great deal of mining accidents. We have a great deal of a number of industrial accidents, such as steel mills. In 1889, the first flood that came through, that would be called the Johnstown flood, came through and wiped out entire towns from Johnstown to Pittsburgh. Numerous lives were lost in an instant. And then again, on St. Patrick's Day in the 1920s, another flood came through, killing very, very many people. So this land that we live in, here in western Pennsylvania, is stained with the blood of countless people for a number of different reasons. So we are lucky to live in this area. If you are a paranormal researcher, we are a very historical area. I recently just released a book called Haunted Westmoreland County. Now, I'm sure that a lot of your listeners from Canada and other places might not find that very interesting, but it does detail the haunts behind the history of this area, and we're very unique in the rest of the United States to have this kind of varied history over such a wide time frame.
And when you have that much spiritual activity and you combine it with all the weirdness that seems to happen right next door in Ohio, you're kind of in a corner there with West Virginia, Ohio, and Western Pennsylvania, where there's a lot of weird activity that seems to take place from cryptids like Bigfoot, Dogman, werewolves, and then you add in all of the Civil War type action, along with, well, let's face it, I think you guys have more cemeteries than we do lakes in Canada. So, we'll go there. But, there seems to be something in that little trifecta of states that has a lot of weird things happening to that. So, Rob, why do you think that area is just seemingly so possessed with oddities?
Well, there's another factor that may come into play. Generally, you look at factors that can also contribute to hauntings, because if hauntings, some hauntings at least, are stored energies, residual hauntings of some kind, what is the batteries that hold these spirits in place? Well, one of the things that has been proposed is a great deal of limestone. In my area of western Pennsylvania and the areas of Virginia and the areas of Ohio very near me, we are very rich in limestone outcroppings and limestone deposits. Another thing is it's believed that running water has a kinetic energy that can actually store spirits as well. The memories, the actions, and of course Pittsburgh has 3 rivers. The Conemaugh River is a river that shapes the very county lines around where I live. And, of course, the Ohio River goes into Ohio, and it goes into West Virginia. So we are bound by rivers as well. Another particular factor that is said to be able to store spirit energies and spirits are able to use as a way of manifesting themselves is the kinetic energy stored up in railroad tracks. And of course, railroads are what made this country great at one time. We have steel mills around my area. We have iron mills. Of course, most of them are not operational anymore. But trains were taking vast amounts of supplies out of these mills out to the rest of the country. And also, what the train tracks did, unfortunately, was cause a great deal of death. That is the other thing that I investigate as well too. Just 2 weeks ago, a group of us went out doing some exploration along the railroad tracks here in Derry, Pennsylvania, where I live, and it was a scene of quite a few train accidents involving deaths within the last decade, as a matter of fact. And we had picked up a lot of orbs on camera. But, it's just one of those interesting things that we have natural elements, and we have the energies of the railroad tracks capable of holding spirit memories as well. So it's just one of those perfect storms of events and the natural terrain of this area.
Bruce in the SOR Space Travelers is asking you, Mr. Crypto Guru, have you ever learned anything about Zug Island, the former Indian burial ground, and the source of the loud humming that goes on? This interests me a great deal because in the Ohio River in Pittsburgh, there is Bruno's Island down there that used to be an Indian burial ground, and it is a site of a lot of Native American ghost sightings. So I know in regards to
my area. Now, the particular island that he had mentioned, I'm not quite familiar with that, but of course there's water surrounding it, plus the events that occurred on that island as well, too. Now, the humming, we do here in western Pennsylvania get reports of the humming. I have yet to investigate a report of the humming, and I've not heard it myself either, but I would love to hear further on that, and maybe Lee can elucidate a little bit further on this as well, too.
The humming would probably, in my opinion, in my experiences, would be considered, once again, paranormal in that you have the energy fields. And if you have certain areas where there's ley lines and you have the rivers and you have the waters running, you're going to get that energy force that's going to build up, and therefore you have the humming sound.
I know up here north of me, about 3 hours, in a small steel town called Vanderhoof, they actually had on video recordings of not a humming, but it almost sounded like railroad cars moving, but there was no railroad around. It was the weirdest sound, because people aren't sure if it was the tectonic plates that were shifting, if there was actually drilling going on underground, and this went on for hours upon hours. Then it would stop, and then it would refire up again hours later, or the next day, or a few days later again. And all of a sudden it just stopped completely.
Yeah, so one has to wonder what lies behind that. I mean, is this a paranormal thing? Is this a conspiracy type of thing that the government might be doing? I know here in western Pennsylvania we do a lot of fracking, and in Ohio, places like Cleveland, it's even causing minor earthquakes. So there's a lot of human involvement into the strange and mysterious that is going on as well, too. It possibly even stirring up some things that shouldn't be stirred up. But I am familiar with the case of the humming in your part of the world, my friend. I have looked into that. It is very strange. Some people do report the humming as being almost an industrial sound. So I don't really know what to make of it. I would like to hear it sometime, or maybe again that maybe I wouldn't. But yeah, it's just one of those very unique things, and almost a thoroughly modern manifestation of the spirit world that really has happened in the last 10 years. We never really saw much of it or heard much of it in antiquity.
It is very difficult to understand, because you don't know if that's human-made, you don't know if it's something that the Earth is doing and shifting on its own, or you don't know even, hell, if it's aliens, drilling a hole underneath for another underground base. We just really don't know.
That's exactly right. Yep.
It could be absolutely anything. When it comes to ghosts, Leah, I want to ask you on this one. Do you believe that every person who dies becomes a ghost, or do we have a choice whether or not we want to stick around here after we pass on?
Not everyone that passes on, that dies, leaves their body, they do not become ghosts. The only reason why you have ghosts is, one, it's say somebody, how can I explain this? They have unfinished business. They're not ready to go because something wasn't ready, or they don't want to go. They don't want to die. They want to still live on the earth's plane. Some people are angry and they don't want to go, or they're afraid to go, especially when you have your monasteries and nunneries you find that they're haunted by monks or priests or nuns. It doesn't matter how well they live their life and how pure and spiritual they live their life. They're still so fearful of what's on the other side. Is it hell or is it heaven? That they will refuse to leave. So sometimes it's out of fear. Sometimes the person doesn't even know that they're dead, especially in a tragic accident. If it's happened so quickly, they may not even know that they're dead. And I've run into that several times in my experiences. Sometimes it's a ghost will attach itself to a person, place, or thing. And sometimes it's out of revenge, where so-and-so did something, so they stick with that family, or they continue thinking that they're still in that same time era when actually maybe 50, 30, even 100 years have gone by. So they may not even, they're not conscious of the time change. Most people will cross over when they die. Most people have spirits of other relatives, deceased relatives and friends, spirit guides and angels that come and help them cross over. It's just that handful that just refuse to. Eventually, some of them do, but for the most part, in a historical sense, they're stuck.
While you were speaking, I actually brought up the sounds that were happening north of me. It's actually in a town called Terrace, British Columbia, and I'm just going to play these for you here, if you don't mind.
Good, yes.
Go ahead.
What the fuck?
Oh, somebody had a bad word there. So there you get a sound of what is happening north of where I am by a couple of hours. What do you make of that sound, Ron? Besides the what the...
Yeah, well, actually, the first time I heard it, it sounded industrial, but the longer I listened to it, oddly, it sounds almost like some sort of echolocation. It sounds like almost a terrestrial whale sound to me. Very, very odd.
Almost like a form of communication, almost like if you listen to whales underneath the ocean.
I was going to say that it did sound like whales. And if you know where Terrace, British Columbia is, there's nothing really surrounding it. Okay, it is in the middle of nowhere. Like, I believe the closest town to it is 2 hours away. I've never even been that far north. It's right in the middle of the province. So way up north. So there's no ocean nearby. You know, sure, there's rivers and streams and lakes, but it is a mining / lumber / steel area. And you know, they're getting the iron ore for the steel, and it's a big industrial area. And those sounds, when they're freaking out the local residents, you have to wonder, because those people are going to know what the local mills or mines are sounding like.
Right, and that's almost a deafening sound. It sounds like, you know, that the mining is going, the people that are recording that sound like they would have to be almost inside the mine itself to get those kind of sounds, and obviously they were not.
No.
It sounds very terrestrial. In other words, perhaps what has been questioned as maybe a hypothesis that we actually have extraterrestrials, which aren't extraterrestrials, but actually terrestrials living underneath our ground and inside the Earth.
That could be. We've heard of bases all over the place, and, you know, it's, we hear of the United States government drilling holes all over the place. I mean, you have to realize the population of Terrace is maybe 15,000. I mean, people just don't travel there because they want to. You know, and that's not an insult to the town, because there's good people up there. But it's a mystery that is just unsolvable right now. And it's being heard all over the area.
Now, the research that I've done into UFOs using underground bases or even underwater bases, like in the Great Lakes region, it tends to be centered around areas that are very rich in some sort of mineral. And, you know, thinking about northern reaches of Canada, I am sure that there is a race of beings, whether they are extraterrestrial or ultra-terrestrial or, you know, terrestrial beings that have actually taken to a subterranean type of lifestyle. The resources of northern Canada would be be, invaluable to a civilization like that. So, there's a lot more questions that need to be answered than just giving some sort of glib, I have no idea what it is, because something is going on and it does definitely need to be investigated.
The crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, Leah Dawn Madden, are our guests tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We are going to take a break here at the top of the hour. When we come back, more on the paranormal, more of your questions right after this. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this break.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio on the Spreaker.com network.
Do you believe you've been in contact with extraterrestrials? Have you seen the Greys, the Mantids, or the Reptilians? I am Samantha Mullet, and on the second Tuesday of each month, you can listen and learn from my experiences with off-worlders on Spaced Out Radio's The ET Experience. With host Dave Scott, we'll sit down and chat about what's going on with our friends from other worlds. We'll also try to answer your questions, so please tune in on the second Tuesday of the month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Spaced Out Radio. And we give it up to you guys, all the listeners, and the live listeners usually get something special and hang out in the chat room. And we love to have you. So we'll see you every Saturday night at 8 p.m. You know where.
If you're a fan of social media, you can follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also follow us on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel, where our archives are stored, is Spaced Out Radio Show. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining in. If you're listening in on the SHR Media Network, if you're listening in on Wolf Spirit Radio, Paranormal Forum, the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker or on Facebook at Forest Moon Paranormal, Euphoria Chronicles, or the flagship SOR Space Travelers. Appreciate all of you coming in and joining us tonight. Always a pleasure to have you with us. I am your host, Dave Scott. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. And our website, which will have a new look very, very soon, is spacedoutradio.com. Tomorrow night on the show, Susan Collins will join us. We are going to talk dowsing and how using dowsing can connect you to extraterrestrials. That should be interesting. We'll get into that tomorrow night. Once again, on Friday night, we will not be having a show. We're going to take a rare night off. I have to, unfortunately, head out of town for a funeral after my best friend's mother passed away, so we are going to be back on Monday night. Tonight, though, we do have a show. It's the second Wednesday of the month, which means it's Crypto Guru time with Ronald Murphy, and tonight he brought along his friend and cohort, Leah Dawn Madden, who is a psychic medium. Both are out of Western Pennsylvania. Ron, Leah, thank you so much for being with us. That was a quick hour.
It was.
It was indeed.
Yeah, it went by fast.
I want to start off with some questions from our audience here. And Ron, this one's for you. This comes from Jay Adams in the Paranormal Forum. And it's a Bigfoot question. Have you ever in your studies learned when Bigfoot's first sightings happen, and how far back do they go?
Well, I just did a conference on this a couple of days ago. So my first, the evidence that I take as a first recorded sighting of a Bigfoot goes to about 2100 BC, if you would consider the Epic of Gilgamesh and the wild man named Enkidu within that story. He was described as a hairy man that would drink out of the same springs that the gazelle drank out of. He lived in the woods. He had, he was the uncivilized. And to me, that is the first true Bigfoot sighting, if you will. Now, of course, Bigfoot is a very North American term, and I'm hoping that he means the sighting of what would be described as a man-ape of some kind, or a wild man of some kind. But in North America, you can go back to as far as 700 AD in the Tool Reservation out in Central California, and you can find the figure drawings on the rocks of something called the hairy man, which looks like a large, lurking Bigfoot creature with a family of Bigfoot. It shows a female creature as well as an infant. And it is part of the Native American creation story that the gods created man and the hairy man at the same time. And the hairy man had to flee, and he was weeping because humanity cast him out because he was different in appearance. Also, in North America, nearly all native cultures have some conception of the wild man or the other. So if you would say how long has a Bigfoot been with us, it is part of the human condition. It's part of our collective unconscious. There has been a wild man with us while we were still wild ourselves. Whenever we became civilized, it represented the antithesis of who we are, but the wild man, the Bigfoot, the other, has been with us since the very beginning.
Leah, I have a question from you from Sabretooth in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. Do you have any thoughts or opinions on the sensitivity of animals to the paranormal? He has cats, and they exhibit somewhat strange behaviors, like going into trances, jumping scared for no reason, and watching things that he can't see himself. Now, I want to answer that first because I know what Sabretooth is going through, because a number of years ago when I lived in a haunted house, when my oldest daughter was still quite young, we would be sitting at the kitchen table eating dinner, and I can recall my one cat, it was playing with something, like somebody was dangling something, and he was on his hind legs trying to bat it out of the air, and there was nothing there. So there has to be some sort of paranormal connection between animals and the spirit world.
Yes, animals are very sensitive, especially dogs, cats, birds, horses, and rabbits. They have a super sense. They do see, they do feel, they do hear. They do experience both the fairy realm, the paranormal realm, as ghosts and spirits and such. So when you see an animal looking, if it's out of their character and they're like staring or they're playing, that seems like there's nobody there. There is somebody actually there.
I'm very curious how an animal would be in tune with the fairy realm.
Cats especially are known to be fairy creatures themselves. If you go back into a lot of your folklore and a lot of your fairy tales, cats are often seen as part of the fairy realm, as well as familiars for witches and so forth. They have a high sensitivity, a spiritual attunement that allows them to be a part of that realm.
Very interesting indeed. Galen has a question for both of you, and Ron, we'll start out with you on this, and this is coming out of the SOR Space Travelers. What about the strange sounds from the sky that were recorded and have been recorded since 2012? We were just talking about strange noises. So what is your opinion of that, Ron?
About the noises that we just heard, my friend?
No, apparently there have been noises that have been coming out of the sky. It's almost been like, and I've heard them, the ones I heard almost sounded like trumpet-like sounds, like angels playing trumpets kind of thing. I think that's what Galen is getting at.
Okay, I see, yes. Well, the idea of a trumpet being blown is traditionally one of the heralds of the apocalypse. I hope that is not the case because I'm not quite ready for that. I think I need to go to confession a couple of times before that would happen. But, the idea of some instrumentation being blown, some sort of heavenly trumpet being the signal for what is to come is rooted in the Judeo-Christian tradition. So it might be a wake-up call. I have heard people talking about a lot of different strange sounds coming out of the sky. And some people can hear them, and some people that it's going on at the exact same time. Other people cannot hear it, but other people can. So it's like almost people have to be tuned into it. And then I have also heard things, especially in my neck of the woods too, about people hearing, loud claps of thunder on a beautiful summer days. So there are things coming out of the sky, and what is it? I truly, truly do not know.
Leah, do you have any insight on that?
It's odd because my cousin and I have discussed this. We've talked on it at great length, and my take is either it's some form of communication that's going on with extraterrestrials, or, like Ron said, it could be heralding in being able to hear some form of angelic realm that most people can't hear and some people can't. Some people can hear them and some people can't. So
I want to get back into the fairy realm here for a moment, and this comes from Jay Adams in the Paranormal Forum chat room that's following us, and this one's for you, Leah. Do you believe that there is any type of specific connection between birds and fairies? And Ron, we'll get your response right after that as well.
Yes, especially, fairies, the majority of your fairies are nature spirits. They take care of your plants, your animals, your birds, your insects. So I would say yes. Birds and fairies work hand in hand.
And Ron, you're the king of the fairy realm, so let's hear your response. Because what she's saying is that when she sees a lot of fairy paintings, there always seems to be birds in there as well.
That's right. I had released a book several months ago called On Mermaids, and it was interesting because one of the first connections with mermaids had nothing to do with the ocean. It had to do with birds. Birds and mermaids were very closely related at one time. And mermaids are elementals. Paracelsus, back in the Renaissance, stated as much whenever he broke down certain aspects of the intelligent entities that make up the elements. The realm of the mermaid, which is oceanic, and the idea of the bird that can almost go between two worlds. A bird can occupy the world of the land as well as the world of the air, and a connection with the mermaid then, who occupies the world of the sea. There is a oneness then to this creation. So I think that the bird is a personification of the link between different worlds. It can go from one world and take messages to another world, or take some sort of insight to another world. But as we look at history, whenever we deal with the Roman civilization, we think of augury. Whenever birds were used to divine, fortunes, or to predict omens. Whenever you look at even the Aztec and the Maya civilization, Mexico City was founded where an eagle had killed a rattlesnake. That was seen as a sign. And whenever you look at the Romans and the tales of Claudius, there was a bird that signaled the passing of one Roman emperor into the reign of another. So birds have been a very curious creature whenever it comes to the divination of future events. So whenever we think of the world of the fairy and the world of a bird, fairies can occupy different realms, as can a bird. So you could think that it's a symbolic personification of a fairy, kind of its attribute. Or you could take it on a very literal level, like Leah had said, that birds are part of the natural realm, and fairies, as I believe as well, are the caretakers of that realm, and they just kind of coincide with each other.
I never thought about that. There's another interesting comment from Jay in Paranormal Forum. Do you think sometimes then, Ron, that maybe the birds that are fairies aren't really birds, but something elemental?
Oh, absolutely, and I have seen even what people had thought would be fireflies, lightning bug lights, that I could see as nothing else than fairy activity. So whenever we're talking about some sort of camouflaging going on, I think that is absolutely hitting the point. Whenever we think of certain fairies in different realms around the world, like the Irish puka, it was said to be able to transform itself into a bird. So whenever people think about Thunderbird legends, I think you also have to look at the fairy realm for that kind of and for those kind of cryptid explanations as well, because that is embedded within the world of the fairy. The idea of birds, as being a part of that realm.
Interesting. When I hear that, it just absolutely kind of boggles my mind, because when you see something in human terms, Lynn, pardon me, Leah, when you see something in human terms, such as a bird, you don't look at it as, say, being part of a realm. You look at it as being a three-dimensional creature. You see it as being something along the lines of being something that you're used to seeing in the skies or around trees in your area on a daily basis. So hearing Ron put that 2 and 2 together, for most people we wouldn't get 4. But yet there is a connection between fairies and birds.
Yes. And each bird has a different representation too, through many cultures, through folklore and such as your crows and your ravens are usually harbingers of death. You have your doves, which is peace and love. So you have your different, the cardinals is also. They say when you see a cardinal out of nowhere, it means that the Christ energy or a heavenly spirit is blessing you. So different birds also have different meanings. So it's just not that, that's a blue jay and that's a robin and that's a crow and that's a raven. Each one significantly has its own meaning.
I have a question coming in from Eric in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. And I guess we'll start with you on this one, Ron.
Okay.
Do we interpret fairies as bugs or other familiar organisms unless our minds are open to seeing them as fairies?
Well, of course. If you would see something fluttering past you or in your peripheral vision, immediately what we're thinking is the most rational explanation has to be an insect or some sort of bird or something of that nature. It's only whenever you open up your eyes, whenever you take that veil off of your eyes, and that you have to have a willingness to see beyond the ordinary, does the world of the Fae open up before you. It's kind of like the cave allegory in Plato's Republic. It describes people looking at a cave wall, and behind them there is the great light of a fire. And that fire casts shadows onto the wall, and the people staring at the wall can see glimpses of another world. But if they would simply turn around and look at the fire, you can see what is casting those shadows. We, as a human race, need to start learning to turn around.
And that makes sense. We have a question from Gloria coming in the SOR Space Travelers. What is the idea about, or your ideas, rather, about the no-fly zone set up around the Arizona asteroid?
Well, go ahead, Leah. Go handle this one.
No, go ahead, Ron. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, see, the thing is, whenever a governmental agency gets involved in anything, you have to immediately think that there is some sort of military component to it, or if not a direct military component, there is at least a military reason to be there. There's some sort of military use. So whenever you think of a no-fly zone, you immediately think that our great military, our great industrial complex, the military-industrial complex is it's trying to keep the lid on something that it knows about and trying to keep it out of the out of the public view for whatever reason. It's usually very nefarious.
In other words, cover-up, conspiracy.
Exactly, that's right. Or if not a cover-up, not a direct cover-up, it could have been something extraterrestrial that they are able to, try to see what they can get out of it. And this will never be open to the human public, the human public. It will never be opened up to the American public because the government does not think that we can handle things dealing with an advanced race or another civilization. During the 1800s, across much of the United States, there were giant skeletons being found in Indian burial mounds in Bradford, Pennsylvania, right up towards the New York border. There was burial mounds that were delved into, and it recovered skeletons 8-10 feet tall with 2 rows of teeth and horny projections out of their heads. We know this because there is extant newspaper articles covering it, and sometimes even pictures of these giant skeletons. So what happens is that the small town newspapers say that somebody from the Smithsonian is coming up to look at these and evaluate these findings. And within a couple of days, the Smithsonian comes to town, and the headlines vanish. Nothing more is talked about these remains that were found. And not only that, but the remains disappear because it's presumed that the Smithsonian takes them away. There's been a government cover-up about things since the 1800s, if not before. There's also speculation that whenever Lewis and Clark went across the United States, some very, very bizarre things were found, and these too were covered up. Meriwether Lewis was actually, some people believe that he committed suicide, but there's also a school of thought thinking that he was actually murdered because he uncovered things that were better left not uncovered.
Correct.
Eric has a follow-up question to his question about fairies from the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. Is there something we can do to facilitate seeing them or interacting with fairies in a positive? Leah, we'll start with you.
The one thing that I have found is that you should always give an offering, so that if you live in an area, even if it's like you're in a town area, if you have some place where there's vegetation, foliage, greenery, trees, what have you, even your own flower garden, or even if you have a vegetable garden, if you leave an offering for them and you give them a prayer of blessing, it will facilitate their happiness, that they will bring happiness to you. In other words, you can leave an offering as such as like little bits of cheese, nuts, honey cakes, little rice cakes with honey on them, English muffins with honey and butter on them, a little cup with like mead or beer or wine or juice, and you just give an offering. And with that offering, they will usually facilitate so that you're able to interact with them. And you'll know when they come around. You'll have a feeling, whether it's a sound, a sense, a smell, they're there.
Galen has a question in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, and we'll start with you on this one, Ron. She has heard that trees are like giant antennas, sending and receiving signals from space. Have you ever heard that?
I have not, but getting back to the fairy realm, trees are inherently connected with the world of the fairy. So if we are talking about outer space, if we're talking about something beyond ourselves, if we're talking about outer space could be part of the goblin universe, then absolutely. If you would look back in the Middle Ages and even before in Greco-Roman thought, every tree had a corresponding intelligence to it. Willow trees, hawthorn trees, they all had some fairy entity attributed to them. So, and fairy communication could be done through the tree, whether bringing a branch inside or placating the tree in some way in sacred groves. Even the Druids did such things. The idea of praying in sacred groves is very, very ancient. The Greeks even had a sacred grove at Dodona, which was for the worship of Zeus. So the idea of sacred trees has been with us probably since shamanic times back in the Pleistocene.
Ron and Leah, we're going to hop out for a break here at the bottom of the hour. Another quick half an hour here has rolled on by. We got more questions from the audience coming up right after this, and we'll get more into the paranormal as well. The crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, his monthly appearance on the second Wednesday of every month right here on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be back after this.
Have you ever had an extraterrestrial experience? One you just couldn't explain? Well, maybe I can help. Hello. I am Samantha Mullet. On the second Tuesday of each month, I will join Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio to bring a human aspect to ET contact. It's something I've lived with my entire life, and I'd love to help you understand. Let's share our experiences. The ET Experience, the second Tuesday of each month, only on Spaced Out Radio.
Fairies? Bigfoot? Dogmen? Trolls? Goblins? Hey, if it's cryptid in any way, I'm looking into it. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, also known as Spaced Out Radio's Crypto Guru. Join me every second Wednesday of the month on Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott, where we will talk about the stories people call tall tales. I will fill you in on the latest sightings and the hidden histories that are causing quite a stir. You can find everything at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com/rivuletrndr, or my Facebook page, Rivulet R&R, to set up an appointment for relaxation, Reiki, or readings, no matter where you are. It's time for you to make time for you.
Would you like to expand your clientele? Have you ever thought of online radio advertising? Check out spacedoutradio.com to get your name out there. Our listeners support those who advertise with us, so why not give it a try? We have the most competitive advertising prices out there. Just click on the advertising tab on spacedoutradio.com and contact us today.
Are you an ET experiencer, but you just don't know what's going on? Are you too timid or shy to discuss it with anyone? Maybe I can help. Join me, R. Keith Andrews, the first Friday of every month on Spaced Out Radio, and I will help you to find the answers you're looking for. Together, I will help you understand the off-worlders and the true meanings behind your experiences. All you have to do is join us in the Spaced Out Radio chat room. See you there.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up, enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on two mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. Two mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
Do you have a topic or a guest that you'd like to hear on Spaced Out Radio? Let us know at spacedoutradio.com, where you can sign up to become a Space Traveler member today. Or you can find us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on our Facebook page, Spaced Out Radio Show. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott. A pleasure to have you with us. If you're tuning in on the SHR Media Network, over on Wolf Spirit Radio, they're picking us up. We are growing, expanding. If you're listening in on Paranormal Forum, the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, or on Facebook, Forest Moon Paranormal, Euphoria Chronicles, or our flagship chat room, the SOR Space Travelers. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Dave Scott. Pleasure to have you with us. Remember, tomorrow night on the show, Susan Collins will join us. We're going to talk dowsing and how we can use dowsing to connect with ET. That'll be an interesting show indeed. We will not be having a show Friday. I will be heading out of town, so it'll be silent on Friday night. If you show up and say, hey, where's the show? Well, we're not going to be here. So we're taking a rare night off. Saturday and Sunday, though, James Tyson will be back for Spaced Out Weekend. Remember, on social media, you can follow us at Dave Scott SOR on Twitter. or make that at Spaced Out Radio on Twitter, Dave Scott SOR on Instagram, on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, same as on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking with the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, as well as Leah Dawn Madden. She is his psychic intuitive when it comes to the paranormal. We've been talking paranormals, trying to get it in there edgewise, but this show, courtesy of our awesome audience, has kind of went in a way different direction, guys. I hope you don't mind.
Well, that's fine.
Hey, if it's about fairies, I love it.
Well, let's stick with fairies and gnomes for a moment. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the people in the SOR Space Travelers, they bug the living daylights out of me that I have an absolute fear of garden gnomes. I cannot stand garden gnomes. So, Joe wants to know what you think of garden gnomes, or gnomes in general, Ron.
You know what? I loves me some gnomes. I actually own garden gnomes. We actually have garden gnomes inside our house, if you can believe it. So I love the idea of gnomes. Now, we go back to our friend Paracelsus, who I mentioned a little bit earlier, and he believes that all the elements had a corresponding intelligence to it, an element to it. An elemental is where we come up with the word. So in the oceans, we have something called undines, which could be translated as fairies. The air had something called sylphs, which would be, the water was the realm of the mermaids, which could be considered the undines, and the sylphs were the fairies of the air. That's where you would get the air. But the earth, the connection to the earth was through the element of the gnome, and the name itself could mean the earth. That's a little bit ambiguous about where the word gnome originates from, but the gnome was seen as an intelligent, elemental, reigning spirit of the earth. And hey, I don't think you should be afraid of gnomes. I truly don't. I know that they can creep you out a little bit the same way as clowns, but I would much rather be in the company of a gnome than a clown any day.
I hate clowns, too. I
hate clowns with a passion, yes.
Oh, and here Matthew Smith in the SOR Space Travelers has just posted a little picture of what he calls zombie apocalypse garden gnomes. Like, that's going to give me nightmares tonight. You know why I hate gnomes, and I'll tell you why. When I was a single dad, and I lived in a basement suite, and my landlords actually had guarded gnomes in their garden. And my daughter, who is very connected, would say quite often she would be sleeping in her room, and in the middle of the night, she would hear tapping at her window. And it would continue, and then when she would go check, she swears by it, and I believe her, she swears by it, where she would all of a sudden see the pitter-patter of these garden gnomes running back to the garden. And ever since then, I have not been a fan of garden gnomes.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that is the stuff of nightmares. Anything that is inanimate and coming to life, that is the stuff of nightmares. But those garden gnomes, I would think, would have been possessed by some sort of evil entity, and they were able to come to life in that way. And I think that if it was a true garden gnome, you wouldn't be scared, Dave.
No, I understand that, but this is also the same place where I actually had a very close encounter with a shadow person one night. So
there you go. Okay, let's hear about this. Because I think the shadow people are one of the things that should be studied a lot more. So this can kind of tie in the whole idea of the paranormal and ghosts and everything else. So I want to hear about your shadow person encounter.
Well, I remember listening to an old Art Bell Coast to Coast show, and it's funny because at that time, I had lived in a haunted house previous. I was really starting to believe everything. And I remember Art speaking about, and I know everybody laughs in America when I say about, because my Canadian accent comes out. I just realized that. But the topic was shadow people. And I don't know the name of the guest he had on. This is going back to probably 2008. And what the guest had said really resonated with me, that shadow people, for the most part, come around during the darkest times of your life, whether you're battling anxiety, depression, breakup, divorce, death, whatever it could be. Anything that's going to keep you down while you are in a down moment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It does to me, sure, oh yes.
Okay, so I am going through a nasty separation with my ex-wife who had left me for another man, and you know what? Since then, her and I have patched things up on a human level, and she's happily married to him, and you know what? God bless them for having a happy life. But in order to getting back to the shadow person, in order to get to my door, I had to unlock the gate, walk around the back of the house, and my door was at the back of the house. So on my door, there was one of those sensor lights. And when I came home from work, the sensor light was never on. And I came around the corner, or as I was about to come around the corner, I realized that the sensor light was on. So immediately I'm thinking, animal, like a dog or a cat, or maybe a rat or a mouse or something along those lines, because I live near the woods in a marshy area, or maybe it was a burglar. Mm-hmm. And I walk around, so I took the corner wide, and I kind of looked towards where my door was, and there was this shadow person standing there right in front of the door. And what I recall, in about the 30, 40 seconds that I looked at this creature, or whatever it was, being, the head was almost cartoonish, like when you were a kid, that you would draw a round head with, kind of block-style arms, with a block-style pant that's kind of squared off at the bottom. And what I remember about this was there was no facial expressions, there was no hat, there was no hands, and there was no feet. And what I do remember, though, is that this shadow person actually, as I was staring at it, turned, faced me, and then turned away and ran right through one of the cement wall barriers that was on the back of the house. And it disappeared right into the cement. And all I could think of was, wow, that was kind of cool.
Oh.
That was different.
Yes. I think that Leah could probably add a little bit to this, but I would say that as far as my research goes into shadow people, and this is one of those areas of ghost lore that truly does interest me, that they seem to almost be a blank slate in which the individual person can project anything that they want to onto it. So you said it's coming around at very difficult times in people's lives, and I do see that. And then they are also witness around places where very tragic events happened. And I think that they serve almost as a means by which you could fill them up with anything you desire, whatever kind of pain you want to project onto them, or any kind of heartache or loss that you want to project onto them. They are kind of like an empty a movie screen, and you are the one that's projecting onto them. But very, very interesting characters indeed.
Oh, for sure. And intimidating. I've never seen another shadow person since. I have seen a shadow car. That was odd.
I've never heard of this before. And what is the circumstances involving that?
The funny part about it is I just told this story for the first time, and when you and I decide to write My Happily Boring Life Coming to an End, or whatever it's going to be called, I remember one time, it was a few winters ago, probably 3-4 years ago, I had to drive about 52 kilometers. That's the distance between my home and where I worked. And in mileage, that's probably, 35 miles to work, okay? And so what was happening was I was on the highway, freeway to you Americans, And there's one part where we have to cross over a bridge, which goes over a canal where there's really some of the best salmon fishing in the world if you're a fisherman. And it's called the Vetter Canal. And biggest fish I ever saw pulled out of there was a 62-pound salmon that I helped a guy land. That's big. Oh. But anyhow, I'm about to drive over the bridge, and I see a car in front of me, probably, I'm going to say 15, 20 car lengths in front of me, and there's no other cars behind me or in front of me, and it's about to go onto the bridge, and it has no lights on. And I'm watching this car, I'm thinking, man, that looks like an old late 70s, early 80s type sedan, with the big trunk and the kind of the high ceiling, vaulted ceiling that those types of cars had. And I'm watching it, and I'm watching it go over the bridge. I start to climb onto the bridge, and there's a little hump in the bridge. And the bridge isn't very big. It's maybe 60 yards, 70 yards long. Okay, not very big at all. But there's a hump in the middle. And when I came off the hump, I watched the car go down and into the corner on the left, and I'm thinking, this guy's got to turn his lights on. Like, come on. And then it just disappeared as it went around the corner.
Wow. See, See, anything tragic happened in that area. See, seems like, see, that's what it seems like to me, that there's something residual going on there. There's some sort of playback going on there.
No, exactly. And you know what? That bridge, because it's very, very thin, and what happens is when you go too fast going into that corner when you're heading westbound on the highway, and if you've got semi-trucks, like every year there's a couple people killed on that bridge because they're just driving way too fast, and a lot of times it's semi-truck drivers who misjudge the thinness of the bridge, so it does cause a couple fatalities every year on there, which is unfortunate, but it does happen, right?
Right. Yeah, that's what it seems like to me. And again, if my theory is correct, the blackness needs to be filled with something to give it substance. So you can imagine, how many tears and how much sorrow and loss had went into such accidents, and that is the very perfect thing to fill such a void up with, if it's feeding off of the emotions of others.
Absolutely. I have a question for you, Ron, from Roz in Paranormal Forum. And Leah, we'll get your opinion on this one as well. Okay. What do you believe is the link between fairies and the little people that First Nations people see?
Oh, very good. Well, some of the beings that the First Nations see has reported seems to be more in line with some sort of unknown hominin. Whenever we think of the Hobbit, the Homo florensis, that it was, it could be seen as a cryptid, but it was a very small, roughly 3 foot tall, hairy a human that existed up until maybe 15,000 years ago. A lot of the sightings that the Native Americans have with small creatures seem to be part of a world of the hominid, that these are a lost race of very small humans that once coexisted with us, but were thought to go extinct. That's what it seems like to me. There's a great tradition in Hawaii of the very small beings as well too, and for all the world, it seems to me to be describing a race or a tribe of very small people. In eastern Pennsylvania, we have something here called the Albert Witch, which translate from the Dutch as an apple stealer, an apple snitch, and they are described like a very small Bigfoot, maybe a 3 foot tall, hair covered, man-like creature. That is one realm, but there's another aspect of this as well, too, that you have the very small tricksters or the very small shapeshifters. These seem to be attributes of the fairy. So I think we have to look at these First Nations traditions on very different levels and take it by case, and not just put a blanket statement out there about such things. I think that there are fairies within the Native American cultural traditions, but there are also cryptids as well, hairy hominids of races that were supposed to be extinct.
Leah, what's your take on that between the fairy realm and First Nations little people?
I would have to go with what Ron has already spoken on. First being its own subspecies of a different nation of little people. Instead of having a Bigfoot, you have a Littlefoot, more or less. But also in the fairy realm, if you look at the similarities coincide with, say, the brownies or the miniature elves with the fairy folk, and that in certain Native American folklore and their legends, or they could be very detrimental. It all depended on the people and how they were treated in turn. If they, if they gave their offerings and they, lived peacefully, then all was well. But if they didn't, or if they snubbed them, then, as in other cultures, if you snub or you do something basically to upset the fairy folk, you're going to get, a backlash. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that you have two separate things, and like Ron said, you have to go case by case. I do believe that there is a realm of the fairy folk, but also, just as you have a Bigfoot, you have little feet, a little foot running around. So yes.
Leah, I have another question for you from Galen in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. She says she has seen a ghost house only twice. None who were with me could see it. She touched it, thought it was real. Hearing about the shadow car made her think about it. Have you ever heard of a house that was a ghost?
Oh, wow. No, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Personally, I've never experienced anything like that. Not that I haven't ever heard of it, but it's very unusual. So the house was there and then it wasn't?
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, the people with her could not see it.
Okay. Then evidently she was seeing in a different time sketch of when that house actually existed. Maybe. So where they couldn't see it, she was able to see it because it came from a different time period.
Interesting. Very interesting indeed. We got time for one more question. We'll go back to Jay Adams in Paranormal Forum here. She is wondering if fairies tend to be in areas that have a lot of moisture in the air, perhaps helping conduct energy. Ron, what do you think of that?
In my research of fairies around my area in western Pennsylvania, we were always dealing with water of some kind, whether if it's a fairly large river system or even streams, also limestone outcroppings. And so most certainly I would definitely say that water has something to do with it. Even if you look at the Arthurian traditions and, the fairy elements in regards to those stories, whenever we think of the Owl of Avalon, there's always this connection with the water, whether it be the sea or whether it be inland lakes of some kind. But fairies definitely, as caretakers of nature, has so many different elements associated with it. They do make up the air, the land, the water. It is all encompassing whenever it comes to the fairy. But yes, absolutely, I would think that that's a very good speculation that you will have water around where there is fairy sightings.
And we got time for one more question here from Lisa in the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, and this goes directly to you, Leah. Lisa is wondering, Leah, how can one extract energy from a house, and what kind of energy would be extracted?
I mean, buildings themselves, houses, they are the realm of what holds and shelters the family, people, what have you. If you're going to extract energy out of a building, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be negative energy that you're going to unleash, get rid of, banish, in whatever way you can. Drawing positive energies in. You don't want to so much extract it, but you want to draw it in and put forth love and energy and light into that building.
That sounds very interesting indeed. Now, does that work for houses that may not have spirits in there? Because as many houses that are haunted out there, there are some that are not, or the property is still clear. At
any time you could have a haunting. You can create your own haunting. It has been proven. People are sitting around a Ouija board or what have you, or not even a Ouija board, but they start doing thought forms and they create a character, and they can create that character into being. It's a thought form. So anything can become haunted, but you can also banish anything that is haunted. Do you understand?
I hear it. Leah, Ron, I'm going to get you to hold on here. We are at the top of the hour already. I'm still blown away by how fast this show is going right now. Blown away.
Me as well.
2 hours in already. Where'd it go? Where did it go? Seriously. Anyways, I'm going to get you guys to hold on. We're going to hop out for a break here at the top of the hour. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. It's the Crypto Guru, Ronald Murphy, joined by his friend Leah Dawn Madden tonight as the Crypto Guru comes on the second Wednesday of every month right here on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to hop out for a break. When we come back, more of your questions, and we're going to learn about a real interesting character that's wandering around Beaver County, Pennsylvania.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy, from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the Crypto Guru for nothing.
Is the 24-hour world starting to wear you down? Let me from Rivulet Reiki and Ratings lend you a hand. Hi, this is Jolene, and if you're in need of Reiki or a realm reading, come to my website, rivuletrr.wix.com/rivuletrr&r, and let us help you out. At Rivulet, I specialize in healing your body, mind, and soul, no matter where you are. And be sure to check out the Rivulet R&R Facebook page for your best deals. Remember, it's time for you to make some time for you.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Would you like to connect with us on Spaced Out Radio? Head to spacedoutradio.com to check out the latest shows, guests, and sponsors. And don't forget to sign up for the Space Travelers Club. You'll find all you need at spacedoutradio.com. Welcome back to Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. If you're listening in on Paranormal Forum, Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker, on Facebook at Force Moon Paranormal, Euphoria Chronicles, and the SOR Space Travelers, along with SHR Media Network and Wolf Spirit Radio right now. Thank you so much for being with us. Always a pleasure to have all of you listening in tonight. I'm your host, Dave Scott. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. It'll have a new look very, very soon. Tomorrow night on the show, Susan Collins will join us. We're going to be talking dowsing and how we can use dowsing to connect with extraterrestrials. Who knows? Maybe I'll bring out my pendulum for that one as well. There will be no show Friday night. I do want to let you all know I will be out of town for the day. Unfortunately, I have to go to a funeral, but we will be back with Spaced Out Weekend Saturday and Sunday with Uncle Jimbo, James Tyson. Tonight is Crypto Guru Night. As the second Wednesday of every month, we welcome in the Crypto Guru, author Ronald Murphy. All of his award-winning books can be found on Amazon.com. Joining Ron tonight is Leah Dawn Madden, who helps Ron out with research, information, and his personal psychic intuitive. Good to have you both with us tonight.
Hey, good to be here again, Dave. I'm looking forward to the last hour.
Absolutely. Yeah. Me too. It went by so quick so far. Sometimes it
always does.
I know. It's ridiculous sometimes, Ron. It really, really is. I got to tell you, I have been, if there's one place I have been, I have friends, and I've been to your area in Beaver County or near Beaver County, Pennsylvania, about 4 or 5 times now. It's a beautiful area. I have friends there that I've gone and visit. And it's a beautiful part of the country and a very historic. And being a Western Canadian kid who had never been to the East Coast, it really is shocking how beautiful everything is. And what amazes me is how many brick buildings there are in that area. Now, one of the places that I hang out at when I'm there is a little bar called Thursdays, dollar beer night on Thursdays, if you're ever there on a Thursday night. So I highly recommend you take advantage of that. But yesterday, I actually learned of a haunting there. And apparently a friend of mine named Mike, who's been in the area since, I think, Jesus was still in diapers, knew this man named Raymond Robinson, otherwise known as the Green Man or Charlie No Face. Ron, I would love to hear what you know about Charlie No Face.
Oh, yes, and I'm glad that you brought this out because one of our great dear friends, Brian Seach, he and his wife, Terry, had the Center for Unexplained Events, and the cryptozoological organization that I belong to as well. He did some exhaustive research into this, and unfortunately the truth behind the legends is a bit sad. There was a young man that was involved in some sort of chemical accident, I do believe, that rendered him very disfigured, and he became somewhat of a boogeyman around town. There are pictures, extant pictures of this gentleman, and his face was pretty much melted away, unfortunately. He was just part of the community, not so much a pariah as you would expect, but he tended to stay away from the leering eyes for his own privacy, I'm sure, and for his own mental health, because I'm sure there would be a lot of pointing the fingers. But that is one of those very, very sad legends that we have, sort of akin to the Shenango dog boy, who Mr. Cease had also done research into as well, and it turned out to be a young man with hypertrichosis. So sometimes there are very human elements behind a lot of these legends, and sometimes they're very heart-wrenching.
So is his ghost still wandering around like legend says?
Leah, that's your neck of the woods. What do you have to say about that?
For the amount of trauma and the amount of emotional trauma that he had gone through, I would have to say he probably is. The fear of moving on, or the trauma of being stuck, or feeling ostracized in any way, in any form, I would have to say, or at least a part of him, if not himself, then something that's residual, what have you, would be a remnant of him remaining. So because of the trauma and the drama of what he had gone through in life, he's probably impacted and imprinted, if not as an actual ghost, then as just a form that goes back and forth and just shows himself as just an imprint.
There's a lot of people around the area who says that he is walking along the areas of the industrial zones, and you could see him walking. You can see that he has absolutely no face, and it scares a lot of people because we're not talking about new sections of town in Beaver County, much like Pittsburgh has been updated quite frequently from the old Steel Town days. We're talking about areas where there's still a lot of abandoned brick factories, steel factories, and, there was areas along the Three Rivers there where there was a lot of battles and a lot of places that were extremely hallowed on the grounds of both First Nations as well as the industrial complex. So do you think then that he is just part of the history, his spirit, Leah, do you think he's part of the history, or do you think that he is actually still wandering around, maybe trying to figure out what happened to himself? Because obviously he did not lead a very pleasant life.
Correct. I would have to say it's probably a bit of both. When you have something like that is filled with so much drama and so much emotional trauma, then yes, you're going to have the residual, but you're also going to have the spirit, whether it's an anniversary of sorts or what have you, that they're just going to continue to go back and forth. He may be so upset with the disfigurement that he doesn't want to cross over because he's angry that he was disfigured. So it could be a different reasons as to why they're still seeing him.
Ron, when I turn it back to you for a second, when you hear of a story like this, because a lot of times when we deal with paranormal, we're dealing with people who have died 60, 70, 80, 100, 200, 300 plus years ago. Rarely do we see it start to finish when we talk paranormal of people who have lived, say, in the last half century. Do you see this as more of a special type of haunting because there are still people around who knew him when he was alive?
You know what, I think that does come into play. And it's also interesting to think that he is seen around areas that have fallen into disrepair. So the very landscape mimics the way he was in life. There is a decay to the landscape. There is a disfigurement of what was once great. So I think it's poetic justice that his spirit is still haunting the very places that he had called home, and that they were just shadows of what they used to be. Also, it also harkens back to the era in which he was disfigured, whenever his humanity was ripped from him. And I think that it's very appropriate that you will find a ghost, not only in this instance, but in a lot of different instances. We have ghosts in my area that are still seen around the abandoned glass factories, or around the very skeletal remains of the steel mills. This is the haunts of ghosts because they had put in, 12-hour days, 7 days a week for 20 years. These are the kind of things where energies are stored. So whenever I look at the landscapes, I think that a lot of times the ghosts of the landscapes are the very buildings where people went to work. And these are the reminders to us. The wind that blows through the carcasses of these great buildings are the moans of the ghosts that, we hear in the deep, dark nights. So our Labor Day that has kind of come and gone with these buildings and leaving us in the midst of the Rust Belt, these are all ghosts of the past. So I think it's appropriate that the ghost of the poor man known as No Face is haunting the places that were once industrial juggernauts, and now they've kind of decayed and are forgotten footnotes in the history of our region.
So here's the story of the legend of the Green Man. According to legend passed down by residents, and I'm quoting this from todayifoundout.com, you could spot a mysterious green man walking alongside the road late at night or in a local tunnel where his touch will disrupt a car's electrical systems. His trademark disfigured face and glowing green skin are said to be the result of an electrical accident. One version of the story says he was struck by lightning. Another claims he worked on the railroad as a laborer until an electrical accident killed him. While sometimes urban legends are based on nothing but complete fiction, occasionally there is a kernel of truth of stories, albeit with more fantastic details added over the years. You see, the legend of the Green Man, also known as Charlie No Face, is based on a real person who suffered a horrific accident as a child. So there is literally people being affected by this. I would like to know what tunnel that is.
That is the stuff of urban legend. In Latrobe, there is something called the Witches Tunnel. In Greensburg, right down the road, there are two Dead Men's Tunnels, not one, but two. And it all goes back to some sort of terrible accident that happened in the area, and that always goes back to there must have been a witch involved. So that's a part of the urban legend. Or, whenever you take a something quick moving like a train, there is always going to be unfortunate accidents. So one of the Dead Men tunnels outside of Youngwood here in western Pennsylvania is said to be called the Dead Man's Tunnel because a train went by and killed 3 homeless people that were camping near the tracks. So whenever we think of Dead Men's Tunnels and Witches' Tunnels, it usually revolves around some sort of horrific accident that happened there. And sometimes the ghosts attributed to these areas aren't necessarily the ghosts that died in the tunnels. It all makes good stories. The stories become kind of convoluted over time, and the urban legends kind of blend together. At least that's the way I found in my research.
I have a question on a different topic for you, Leah. This is coming from Eric in the Space Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. Do we keep a spirit tied in place by our memories and expectations of them?
Yes, we can. We definitely can. Years ago, I had a friend of mine. Her grandmother had passed away, and I had grown up with her. And her mother was so distraught, just so distraught. She would go to the gravesite every day, and just wail and cry over the grave. And I would go down to visit my friend, and I would see her grandmother. I would see her in the garden. I would see her in the living room. I would see her in the kitchen as if she was still there, as if she was still cooking. I would see her in a 3D dimension. That's how clear she was. And this went on for quite some time after her grandmother had passed away. And I finally said, I sat down. I was probably about 15 at the time when this all had happened. And I said to her mother, I said, your mother is here, and she's asking you to let her go. She's asking you to please stop crying. Please be happy for her. Let her pass over. Let her cross over and have peace. You cannot continue to go to her gravesite and cry. You're not giving her comfort. You're not giving her peace. You're not allowing her to grow and go into the light. And after that, after having talked with my friend's mother and so forth, she, knowing that her mother was there, knowing that I could communicate with her, and her mother gave her specific messages that were very personal for her, she was able to release that, and finally my friend's grandmother was able to cross over in peace. Now, that doesn't mean that she hasn't come back and isn't there, because they can. Once they cross over, they can come back and visit loved ones. They can stay with loved ones. But it's when you don't allow them to cross over because you're so emotionally distraught is what gives them problems.
That seems very understandable. Ron, right before that last question, you brought up the fact of tunnels. Why do tunnels seem to be so bloody haunted and eerie?
Go ahead, Lee. Go ahead. What were we going to say?
Just in my perspective and in my studies and so forth, tunnels are portals.
Oh, you have to get into that a little bit, because when I go through a tunnel, you know, there always seems to be a little bit of tenseness when you're going through that. Maybe it's the claustrophobia that comes along with that, or maybe it's just the fact that the road is a little bit thinner and, you know, semi-trucks going through a tunnel when you have to pass them going the opposite direction. It's eerie. It's very eerie indeed.
They're the place of travel. It's from one end to the other. So you're actually, when you're in a tunnel, you're actually not just going through your own dimension. You're going through several dimensions. It is definitely, tunnels or portals. I don't like going through tunnels because of that reason.
A series of dimensions. That is very intriguing. I've never heard that statement before.
Well, when you have your different dimensions, we're a three-dimensional world, but that doesn't mean that there's not a fourth and a fifth and a sixth. So when you have portals, it connects to the different dimensions, whether it's the dimension of the fairy realm, or the dimension of spirit realm, or the dimension of how Bigfoot might be interdimensional, you know, coming and going at will. So you have different dimensions. And the one way of having that is like mirrors or portals, especially mirrors or portals for spiritual dimensions, as well as, like I said, tunnels. They're a form of a dimension. They're a portal that helps you get from one point to another, but in the same process, when you're going through and you have that vibration, there's a certain thrumming or feeling that you feel. You're actually feeling the energy, because there's more energy than just the 3D dimensional world. You're feeling other energies as well.
Ron, what's your take on tunnels?
I like to refer to those as liminal zones. It's a demarcation area between this world and the other world, and that's where a lot of unexplained events take place. If you think of roads and tunnels and cemeteries, it's that space between two different worlds. It's between the chaotic natural forces and the more subdued, ordered forces of humanity, and that's the way I see them. I see them as the border realms between two very different worlds.
And that's the same thing with bridges, because you're going from one point A to point B, but you're also normally crossing a body of water for most bridges. So once again, you have that in-between realm.
That's right. And we as people like to order things in that nature. So you know, it takes us slightly off balance when we have to enter something or go over something.
When you look into a tunnel, we have seen people where when they've come out of a tunnel, it seems like they are driving in a different time or a different dimension, and it just seems to flash in front of them within split seconds. Is that what you're talking about in regards to that, Leah?
Yes.
Could it be part of time travel?
It very well could be. Because once again, in time travel, you have to understand is once again part of a dimension. It's its own realm in itself.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Interesting indeed. Ron, I want to ask you about the paranormal here because you're not a prototypical paranormal investigator. You're not out with the laser grids, the K2 meters, the FLIR cameras when you are writing about books. How do you do your research when it comes to the paranormal? Because you are taking this on at such a different angle.
I do a lot of my research in the libraries at first. I am a trained historian, so I approach my research from a very historical point of view. Whenever I was in college, they would tell me in my archaeology classes that 90% of all archaeology is done in the library and about 10% is done out in the field. And that's the way I approach anything whenever it involves paranormal as well. If there are ghost legends in the area or if there's cryptid legends in the area, I will do my research and find out historically what kind of events might have taken place if there had been previous reports in an area. And then after I've amassed all the data that I need, I can then go into an area and pinpoint what I'm looking for. So whenever you watch these kind of programs and people kind of park their cars on the side of the road and just venture in there and start wood knocking on trees, I think that's counterproductive. I like to find the areas where things are reported. And they might not be reported now. This might have been something that was reported, 100 years ago. And I would like to go there and see if there's anything that still remains, whether it's residual or some sort of, active cryptid event still going on. That's the way I approach my research. And then whenever I do go out into the field, I like to surround myself with the best people that I can get. Whenever I deal with needing a psychic, of course, I get my friend Leah to come along because there are people who have expertises in different things that I simply do not have that particular knowledge of, and being a psychic is one of those things. But yes, I approach it from a very academic point of view. And then, of course, like I said, whenever we go out into the field, I like to scrutinize everything from a very skeptical point of view, because if we ever do uncover evidence, science is going to be approaching this from a very, very scientific point of view. So let's scrutinize our evidence and see what we uncover. Many times I have been out in the field and have witnessed things that I cannot explain, and science cannot explain either. These are the things that make it worthwhile, that keep me in the field. But I still have not had that one definitive answer, and that is why I'm still out there and why I'm still talking to you to this very day.
And the answer is something that you have to try and find, because for someone such as yourself, Ron, who is writing about all of these different topics, you can't just go in with the same thought process as everybody else. Like, your thought process would be different than mine, where I go down to the local museum that I know is haunted. I've seen ghosts there, and I'll go in there and try and chat with them. Maybe I'll try some gear. You're going on it on a more informational side. Would that be correct?
That would be correct. That's right. So whenever we talked earlier in the program, which is probably about 2 hours gone by now, I talked about the event of the Johnstown flood back in 1889. So I would go to a library or I would go to a historical society, and I would do my research to find out what kind of small towns were directly impacted by this flood and where there was a great loss of lives. And then I would go into that area and start investigating and find out, what people had seen previously. Now, in investigating things such as the cryptids, such as Dogman, which is one of my interests, I would go to an area that had dogman sightings and look at the geography of the area and look at place names. One particular area in a place called Robinson has an interesting mountain within the confines and within the limits of its town, and it is called Pack Hill. And a lot of people thought that related to the idea of fording across the Conemaugh River and packing your gear across. But I looked at it from a different level. I thought, quite possibly this is referring to a pack of dogmen that may have existed in the area at one time, and there is just simply a cultural memory of this in the place names. So I thought Pack Hill sounded kind of interesting, and then I investigated the geography of the area and found out that there was a great deal of limestone, and not only a great deal of limestone, but there were a lot of caves in the area as well, too. I did find one particular cave there on the summit of Pack Hill, of all places, and to this very day, that area is still witnessing and still recording dogman sightings. So that's how I go about researching the areas. Same way with Bigfoot sightings. There have been Bigfoot sightings around here since the 1970s, and I'm sure there were some before. But of all the research that I've done, the newspapers are continually coming up, 1976, 77, 78. So these are my starting off points. And then I go and look at the surrounding areas, see what's still there from the 1970s, and see if these woods are still there. And then I set up my expeditions going from there. Also, in regards to hauntings, I write a lot about the Chestnut Ridge. One of my books out is called The Unexplained Chestnut Ridge. It's interesting because there's been so many tragedies on that mountain. There has been mining accidents, and there was one particular quarry accident that happened back in the early 1900s. And it was a gravity car system where one car was loaded up with rocks, and it would be sent down the tracks, and it would pull up the other car. One particular day, some mostly Italian immigrants were loaded up in a car. A cable snapped. It went down and crashed, and a great deal of lives were lost. To this very day, people were reporting seeing ghosts wandering about, but not seeing as some sort of ephemeral type of see-through entities, but people in clothing that was reminiscent at the turn of the century, walking around as if they're lost, seemingly not knowing that they are dead. These are the kind of stories that I like to investigate, and a lot of this has to be done first and foremost in the library, because we have to find out exactly what went wrong, what happened in our areas, what kind of things went wrong that led to such an outpouring of psychic energies.
And on that note, we're going to hop out for our final break of the night. Tonight we are speaking with the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, as well as his research partner, Leah Dawn Madden. Tonight, Leah is a psychic medium, very intuitive, and helps Ron with the difficult stuff that he needs to try and find out for his books when it comes to research. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after our final break.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio?
Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us.
From the radio, commercials, to banners, to social media.
Have a product you'd like our host to endorse? We can do that too.
Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry.
Right here, this is where we divulge the fruit of our research. Here on the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on Spaced Out Radio.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where two members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
Missed most of tonight's show? Don't worry, you didn't miss a thing. You can head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and download our archives for free. And don't forget to get your Space Travelers membership today. Now, back to tonight's show. Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. We've rounded third. We're heading for home on the mighty show, the mighty hashtag SOR. Thanks for listening in. If you're on the Wolf Spirit Radio Network, SHR Media Network, Paranormal Forum, Spaced Out Radio's chat room on Spreaker, as well as on Facebook at FMP, Forest Moon Paranormal, Euphoria Chronicles, and our flagship SOR Space Travelers. Always a pleasure to be with you guys. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott SOR. Our YouTube channel, where we store our archives, subscribe to it. It's Spaced Out Radio Show, and our website is spacedoutradio.com. Tomorrow night will be our final show of the week. We will be talking dowsing and how we can use dowsing to connect with extraterrestrials. That's with Susan Collins tomorrow night. I will not be here on Friday night. There will be no show on Friday. It's going to be a rare day off, as I have to head out of town for a funeral. I do have to get this in. SOR Space Travelers, the password for tonight, courtesy of Bill Cardwell, is anomalizer. Anomalizer is the password for the SOR Space Travelers. Thank you, Bill Cardwell, for setting the password for tonight. Tonight, we're going to finish off with the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, author extraordinaire. On Amazon, you can find any of his books, as well as his partner researcher, Leah Dawn Madden. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
I want to get into a couple questions from our listeners before we try and figure out what the Sam hell is actually going on in Ohio, that there always seems to be so many screwed up sightings, paranormal activities, UFOs, ETs, everything going on there. We'll start off with Jay Adams in Paranormal Forum. Now, a little bit earlier, I should say, Leah, you were talking about time travel being in its own realm to itself. Could you elaborate on that?
Time travel in itself is, once again, you're going from point A to point B, but sometimes it's more or less what you would call time slips. It's a completely different realm. I've had my own experiences with it many years ago. I used to live down in the Washington, PA area, and I was dating a gentleman, and we had gone to visit a friend of his at an old farmhouse. And we went up, we spoke for a little bit up on the porch, we came down, and as I turned to go down the second half of the steps, there's a field across from where the big farmhouse had been. It was like I stepped into a time slip. As everything that I had known where I had been at that moment was gone, and I was in a different time. I saw two soldiers. They were Union soldiers that came on either side of me. They were like, "Do you see her?" And I'm like, "Wow, you see me, I see you." Across the way of where the house had been in the field, I had seen the old-fashioned tents, period tents from the American Civil War. I saw fires, campfires. I could hear the men, and from the back I could see one of the generals or officers from the South was coming down to literally talk to one of the generals or officers from the North. It lasted probably only a few seconds, but to me it felt like a lifetime. And then all of a sudden, the guy that I had been dating at the time called my name, and I was back in my own time. So that's a time slip. So yes, time travel is its own dimension. It's its own section of, what do I want to say? It's its own dimension of being. It's separate, but it's still connected to our realm. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
And you know what? A comment from Eric Cooper in the SOR Space Travelers. He actually had a paranormal experience when he was stationed in the U.S. Army over in Germany, where they were walking down an alley and they kind of had a time slip where they saw Hitler. And Hitler was looking really weird at them.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's something that I thought was an interesting story that Eric had told me, because he is uber connected as well. I do have a question coming in from Gail in the SOR Space Travelers. We'll start with you on this one, Crypto Guru. How can a ghost know they're not, or not know they are dead? They see and interact with the living. What are they missing to realize that they aren't alive?
Well, whenever I deal with a lot of historical cases, especially in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, one of the hallmarks of hauntings is that the spirit definitely knows that it is passed away, and they are here to provide some sort of intelligence, some sort of information needed, usually some sort of revenge, if we think of Shakespeare's Hamlet or Julius Caesar, but the ghost usually know that they are dead. In my research, it is only relatively recently that the ghosts have no idea that they're dead, and they have to be pushed along. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure that if it happens, it's always been this way since the very beginning. Maybe more people are reporting on it, and the media is disseminating this information much more now than it had in the past. But I would think that a very, very tragic accident that I've dealt with, like especially in regards to immigrants that have come to this country and left their family behind. You could imagine if there was such a tragic loss of life that the spirit, once it has left the corporeal body, would want to, reach out to those he left behind. And I think that is maybe one of the reasons why spirits refuse to go on or to acknowledge that they're dead. Because if you acknowledge that you're dead, then you also acknowledge that you were not able to make the connections that you would really like to make. You're never going to get to see your family again. You're never going to kiss loved ones goodbye. So it's one of those things where there's a denial involved. I think that's a very sad part of parapsychology whenever you're dealing with ghosts. But in my research, that's what I find more than anything, that there is a sudden loss of life, like in a battlefield or like in a tragic accident. And the ghost simply does not want to admit that he is dead because he still has such a connection to the world around him.
Leah, what is your take on that question? Do the dead really know that they're dead?
Some do. Some are very aware that they are dead. But once again, like Ron said, when you have a tragic accident or something that was so emotionally charged, whether it was a car accident, a train accident, a battlefield, a murder, sometimes that person, once their spirit leaves, they don't realize, once it leaves that body, it doesn't realize that it's dead. It doesn't comprehend, hey, why am I, they still feel that they're existing. I've had many, many instances where I've had to cross spirits over, and I've had to talk to them, letting them know, your loved ones are on the other side. They're waiting for you. Being specific, getting them to understand that if they just turn around and look at the light, they can just walk through it. But sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes they can be very stubborn. No, I'm not dead. Yes, you are. Look at me. I'm in a body, and look at you. You're not. But you have to be very humble, and you have to be very gentle with it. You can't be aggressive, and you can't be demeaning in any way. You have to be as if you were talking to a child, even if it's an adult. You have to really be on a level with being very considerate and very kind when you are talking to someone that doesn't realize that they're dead.
You mentioned considerate and kind to those who don't know. And I'm asking this out of sheer naivety. Can we hurt their feelings? And what happens if they don't know and we say, buddy, you're dead. I'm looking right through you. Like, what happens?
It could be more traumatic for them. Yes, just because you leave your body and you're dead doesn't mean that you lose your personality. You maintain that personality. It would be as if you were talking to another human being. So you have to be humble, you have to be considerate, and you have to be firm, though, too.
Firm as in how?
So, as if they're arguing, no, you need to listen to me. You need to pay attention and you need to listen to me because you're not in a body. Look at me, now look at you. Now what I need you to do is turn around, go ahead and turn around, and sometimes it takes a while. Turn around and look into the light. Look who's waiting for you, so and so for you. And normally once they see their loved ones, they just run to them.
Let's move on to another question here. And this comes from Gloria. And Ron, we'll start with you. What about some beliefs that ghosts, no matter who they are, even loved ones, are actually demons trying to fool you and hook you into believing that they're who they are?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. There is a state hospital not very far from where I live, and it is supposedly haunted by a very little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, with a very nice, pretty dress and a ribbon in her hair. And she is seen at the windows of the old abandoned state hospitals, sometimes even motioning for people to come in, sometimes heard giggling whenever you enter into the crumbling interior of these places. But this little girl is actually trying to lead people deeper into the crumbling edifices, because there's holes in the walls and holes in the floors, and people have actually almost come to almost certain death by following this little girl around. Now, in the realm of demonic hauntings, it has been said that demons can try to copy the living. They're never completely successful and duplicating the world of the living. So sometimes these ghosts are missing important features, like they wouldn't have any eyes or a mouth or a nose. So that is one thing to keep in mind, that whenever a demon is coming to you in the guise of a ghost, to make sure that to almost test the spirit, and it even says such a thing in the Bible, that you can test the spirit to find out what it's made of. And one of the best tests is just to take a look at it and make sure that it's complete, because if there's anything missing, because it can only be a facsimile of the living. It cannot be a direct duplication. If anything's missing, then that is a demon trying to appear as if it were human.
Right next to where you are on the state lines is the state of Ohio. Dogman, Bigfoot, hauntings, the Roswell crash being shipped to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, whatever else is happening at Wright-Patterson, UFOs, alien abductions, it's all recorded in Ohio. What the hell is happening there besides the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and a crappy football team?
Yeah, Lee lives very close to Ohio, so she probably would fill this. But whenever I was in graduate school, I did a lot of research into the effigy mounds and the Indian burial mounds there in Ohio. And it's interesting because you have the Seep Mound, which is a Hopewellian artifact, and you have other Adena mounds from the woodland culture, and then you have the Great Serpent Mound. So you have three different cultures within the woodland culture, situated right there in Ohio, which is kind of unusual. Also, the Serpent Mound in Chillicothe, Ohio, is situated on the top of apparently was an asteroid strike sometime, in 5,000 years ago or so. So there's a lot of weird stuff that happens in Ohio. They also have something called the Grassman, which is their unique Bigfoot. It's just a really strange place, and I'm sure Leah will be able to talk about a few instances there as well too. But it's just a conglomeration of high strangeness. What do you say, Leah?
Ohio for me, even like traveling, like we just came from Salt Fork and so forth. It has a unique energy in itself. It feels completely different from any of the other states I've ever been in. It just has a uniqueness about it. Whether it's a heaviness or a lightness, it definitely has a different feel, a different energy about it.
Do you think that has to do with the history of the land, maybe ley lines, or do you think it has to do with the fact that, for a long time, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base was home to a lot of technology and home to the beginning of flight, the home to the Roswell crash at one point when they brought beings over. It was top secret before Area 51 came into play. So there's a lot of things that have happened in Ohio. There's also, and this is what I found very interesting, and I've mentioned this a couple of times on this show, we had a guest on here named Jim Thomas, who lives about 50 miles from Wright-Pat. And he's a retired firefighter. He has buddies who are firefighters at the Air Force Base, and they are instructed that there are certain buildings that if they ever catch on fire, whoever is in there and whatever is in there must burn to the ground. They are not allowed to put the fires out. And that is scary because when you think about it, anything can be going on. Are they testing animals? Super soldiers. And I'm not trying to get all conspiratorial here because that's not what this show is about tonight. But on the flip side, it kind of plays into that dark side of the state of Ohio.
It does indeed. And I've actually had the chance to visit Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and it is really a paean to to the military-industrial complex. It's one of these great, huge bases that is very touristy at the very opening through the gate, but it has this very layered aspect to it, and the deeper you go, the more restrictive the place comes before you cannot go any further. So there is definitely a facade there. It tries to masquerade as something that's very open to the public, but it is also an extremely closed-off world as well. And if you were wanting to hide classified UFO parts or beings at a particular place, Wright-Patterson would be the place to do it, because it seems like a very touristy, family-friendly attraction at the very opening, and then it has its secrets in the back.
Do you think then that a lot of these creatures are maybe attracted, Lynn, to the area because of, like you said, it's just a strange state where strange things happen? And do you think these creatures kind of get attracted to those areas? Do they know?
I think they follow the energy patterns, especially with the ley lines. Whenever you have ley lines, it's a definite different energy, and it amplifies anything, whether it's negative or positive, around it. So it'll attract whatever's, within a certain range, like a moth to a flame.
Well, that's a good song. That's a good song. If you're going moth to a flame, yeah, we'll get into that next.
Yeah, but as far as if you would think about extraterrestrials, about Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, you could also think about navigation purposes, following the ley lines. For visualization purposes, these Indian effigy mounds do appear on a fairly direct line. So something from the air looking down on, these forms in the land of anything from just circles to the Great Serpent Mound, it is very visual from above, and these things were meant to be seen from above. So whatever is going on there is rather interesting as well, too.
Do you think that a state like Ohio is a place where we could see new creatures pop up at any time? Because I believe close to that area is also the Frogman, is close to the werewolves are being seen. It just seems, I don't know. I mean, you'll think of Washington State, you think Bigfoot, maybe a couple of aliens or two, whoever's flying in the friendly skies at that time. You think of Hawaii, you think of, okay, well, there's sharks around there, maybe some, historic, legends that go along those points. But everything always seems to point back to Ohio. And I know I've mentioned that a couple of times, and I'm not trying to get this at a different angle, but does that maybe lead to the paranormal as well?
Well, sure. I think that's a great assumption of what's going on there. You have the Ohio River, you have Lake Erie on portions of Ohio, you have a lot of the same terrain and the same geological makeup that Pennsylvania has, especially in the eastern part of Ohio. And it is very ancient in regards to First Nations people. So it does have its own little stories that are to be told. It does have, like you said, the Loveland frog, the Defiance, Ohio werewolf. You have the Grassman, as we already touched on, and you have a little place called Gretchen's Lock in Beaver Creek, which is basically right over the state line from Pennsylvania. And this is one of those great hauntings in American history, and it's the only haunting that I've ever seen where the official state plaque was put out there. The official plaque from the Ohio state government that states that this place is haunted by a ghost by the name of Gretchen, which I found very, very curious. So something must be going on there, and to think that it's a tourist trap to get to a place called Gretchen's Lock, you have to go on quite a hike back into the woods at a state park. So there's really no kind of money exchanging hands here. It's just an interesting observation by the state of Ohio.
I guess
I've done several.
Oh, go ahead, Leah. Go ahead, Leah, please.
I was just going to say, Gretchen's Lock in itself, I've done several investigations there, and the amount of energy and the different, there's definitely more to it than just hauntings. Let's just put it that way.
That's right. Yeah, Bigfoot's witnessed in that area. There's UFOs witnessed in that area. People have witnessed faeries very close to this place. So there's something going on in Beaver Creek, Ohio. There's something definitely going on there that needs to be investigated further. But I remember last summer I wanted to see Gretchen's Lock. I was camping with the group, and my wife and my son and my daughter was along on that camping trip as well too. And it was right around midnight, and I wanted to take a hike back and see Gretchen's Lock. So I took my children, who were still up at the time, and I remember my daughter, almost as soon as she entered the woods, started to cry frantically that there was something following her, and then at one point she just came to a dead standstill, tears rolling down her eyes, and she said, I can't go any further, something is following us. But we were very close to the lock, so I picked her up and I carried her the rest of the way, and I sat her down within the lock itself once we got there. And it's a very nice historical site, and you don't see locks every day, so I decided to take a picture of her within the lock to set her at ease. And I snapped the picture, and I looked at my phone, and behind her was a set of glowing eyes. So that's one of those instances where children might have the ability to pick up something going on, and also the documentation of something very strange going on at the Gretchen Lock area of Ohio.
It definitely is. It can be actually very frightening at night. On the other side of Gretchen's, over by the old mill, it's definitely it can be very terrifying. For me, having the experiences that I have, I get very unnerved there. I don't like to be there at night. But there is definitely, at Gretchen's Lock, there's definitely a portal, vortex, what have you, whatever you want to call it. I have seen many different fairy folk there. I've seen spirits, I've seen Native Americans, I've seen settlers. So it's a plethora of many different energies that you have going on there.
And you know what? It's that time, guys.
Isn't that something? That is absolutely amazing.
3 hours. Imagine that.
Well, I'll tell you, this 3 hours would not be possible without your audience. These guys directed this entire show today. You're quite aware of that, David.
I know. We did nothing tonight. All we did was sit here.
That's right, and that makes for the best radio out there.
I agree. And you know what? A lot of audience participation. They always get excited when you come on. The way this is going there, Crypto Guru, you better start carrying a Sharpie around, because people are going to be hitting you up for autographs in no time.
Well, I can't wait. I'm looking. Like I said, I cannot wait for you to have a paranormal conference so I can start meeting some of your groupies.
Well, you know what? You have to talk to Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. He's in Concrete, Washington, which is literally about an hour south of the British Columbia-Washington state border. I will be speaking at his conference in October 22nd, 23rd. You got to get on a plane and come out for that one. I'm going to invite you. I know Eric will be like, oh, what the hell? Dave's just inviting another guy. What the hell? But I know that we have to do it. You may have to get on a plane and get down to the Forest Moon Paranormal Conference.
I may just have to do that, and I hope, what's his name, Eric Cooper, correct?
Yes.
I hope he gets in touch with me on Facebook. He can Ronald Murphy, I hope he gets in touch with me, and we'll be able to talk at length over this. I'd be looking forward to this, my friend.
And you know what? Our resident poet, Corrine DeWinter from purpleplates.com needs to get you on her show as well because she absolutely loves you. So she runs a very good show as well. So you need to get in touch with her as well. You're becoming popular, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, and I owe all my success to you. So the bigger I get, the bigger you get, and I think that we'll be a good team.
Absolutely. People, it's a good show when people are complaining that we're all done.
That's well, I'm flattered, and I'm flattered that I had my good friend Leah on tonight. And like I said, I always look forward to this once-a-month talk that we have there, my friend.
Absolutely. Leah, I want to get you back on very soon because we're going to talk vampires with you. I want to do a show on vampires. So you got to come back. You got to come back.
All right.
Thank you, Ron. Okay. Thank you, Leah. Much appreciated. That's the Crypto Guru. The Crypto Guru, Ronald Murphy, and Leah Dawn Madden, who joined us tonight. She did very well for her first ever radio interview. Very impressed. Very impressed. So, I want to say thank you to all our listeners participating in the SOR Space Travelers on Paranormal Forum, on the Spaced Out Radio chat room on Spreaker. We also thank our listeners tuning in on Wolf Spirit Radio, Euphoria Chronicles, Forest Moon Paranormal, and the SHR Media Network. Glad to have you all with us. Tomorrow night on the show, Susan Collins talks dowsing and how we can use it to connect with extraterrestrials. Get your pendulums ready. I got my sodalite ready. Will you? Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, I can be followed at Dave Scott, SOR. Our YouTube channel is Spaced Out Radio Show. Subscribe to that. I think we've made a total of 96 cents off of that because of your lovely subscriptions. Let's make it 97 cents before tomorrow. How about that? Don't forget, there will be no show here on Friday. I will be stepping away, taking a rare night off. James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend will be back Saturday and Sunday. The password, courtesy of Bill Cardwell and the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook, anomalistic. The password is anomalistic, taking us out on Spaced Out Radio. We'll talk to you in exactly 21 hours. Our music man, Ron Thal, otherwise known as Bumblefoot, is going to take us out right now. Have a good one. See you tomorrow.